All right, welcome to October. It's hard to believe we're here. Winter is right around the corner, but we're still looking at the tropics right now. If you want to keep up with winter forecasting, that's one of my most favorite things to forecast. So if you want to subscribe, I'd love to have you come back. Right now, we're looking at the potential for some tropical development. We're watching Kirk out here and maybe another storm over the next couple of days. The good news is, this is the good news, okay? You may not hear this elsewhere. I've seen these ridiculous clickbait thumbnails and junk images going around social media of some big storm moving up here into the Gulf and moving northeast, impacting the same areas where they're just resharing Helene graphics. It's just absolutely horrible. But I don't see that happening. And here's why. First of all, we're going to get an area of high pressure that will build in Wednesday into Thursday at the surface. There it comes. And then once that builds in, anything that does form here is probably going to go more like this, if anything, into Mexico. Kirk going to stay out here. Going to move this way, this area of low pressure near Bermuda, likely not impacting the lower 48. And then that area of development, that next area of development, also likely going to move off to the northwest and get picked up. And then really the motion of these will be into the North Atlantic. Something that forms here in the Gulf is going to have a hard time moving very far to the north. Again, this high pressure will move in. Front will swing through and likely keep whatever forms in the Gulf or push it slowly into Mexico. Again, there's a lot of questions here, but I do know one thing. The model's been pretty consistent with a strong high here across the United States. This is where I think we have to watch, though, heading into next weekend, into the following week. Now we're getting pretty far out. These westerlies now getting much stronger. I mean, climatologically, you're going to start to see that. So anything that starts to form, even down in here, usually gets picked up pretty quickly, and it's tougher to get a landfalling hurricane the later you get into October. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And look, as we head into really late next week, do we start to watch this area? We'll probably start to see the pattern start to change a little bit, and that might open the door to at least watch the southeast U.S. Let's look at what's going on, though, right now in the upper level. Strong zonal flow here, west to east. That's what that means. And that's going to be pretty consistent this week. That should keep most of the country dry and really cold-free, except for the Pacific Northwest. We have a shot of cold air moving in here. Could bring some snow into the Canadian Rockies. And that trough will eventually shift to the east, and that may bring a decent shot of some cold air into the northeast early next week. Something that I'm watching. We could see our first snow in some of the higher elevations early next week. We're talking about next Tuesday, so like a week from now, right? Monday and Tuesday. A long time. No promises on that yet. Let's look at what we do know as we head through the next 24 to 48 hours. This disturbance here across the Gulf will continue to stay here, and the showers across the east will start to dry out. A strong ridge of high pressure at the surface will build in here, but the real rain will be here along the Gulf Coast. If something does form, again, I think you need to pay attention along the Gulf Coast. It looks like it will stay likely to the south, but I wouldn't turn my back on it. Again, just about a 40% chance of something developing here, according to the National Hurricane Center, and most of the forecast models aren't trying to do a lot. But it's that time of year. You've got some really warm water here, something to always keep an eye on. Surface high building in here. Here goes our next storm. That is going to move off to the east. This is the GFS. It's really aggressive with this trough building in here to the northeast and tries to develop another low here at the surface. That cold air would pull in behind this. And then look at this. What happens as that chilly air wraps around maybe into the green and white mountains of Vermont, New Hampshire, maybe the northernmost parts of New York. We could see our first snow up at the really high spots. That's even questionable at this point. So we're talking about a week from now. A lot could change clearly. And we stay fairly dry after that across the east. High pressure building in. Let me tell you something. This is a very, very fall-like pattern with those clear blue skies and cooler conditions now building in. European, pretty much for the week, paints a very similar prediction here. You can see all that moisture here across the Gulf. There comes our next storm here moving through the Canadian prairies. That actually could bring some snow to parts of Manitoba. Then that moves out. And then our next system moves into the Pacific Northwest. Could bring a little bit of disturbed weather next week. But all in all, everything kind of lining up. The European, though, not quite as cold in the Northeast as the GFS. I feel like that's probably what's going to happen. Stay tuned, more details on that. But we will see some snow into parts of the Canadian Rockies, so from Banff here up into the ski areas, and then out along the coastal ranges here into British Columbia. Some areas could see close to 2 feet of snow. This is centimeters, by the way, is what we're looking at here. So, anywhere between 8 and 30 centimeters. In some areas could see up to 60 to 80 centimeters, the highest elevations for my Canadian friends. A little bit of snow there on the way as we head into October. Rain could be heavy across the deep south. We're talking about right along the Gulf Coast. That's that tropical moisture that we're watching. And then Some lighter showers here will add up. It looks like early next week here across the Northeast. That's that next system that would move in with that colder air. Once the clouds move out, we'll dry out heading into next week. All right, that's all I got. See you guys.